press the button, close this, let it sit for about 5 seconds, open it again, and press the
All right, it's 7 o'clock. Is everyone ready to begin? Okay, I'm going to call this special committee of the whole meeting to order on Tuesday, March the 1st. Tonight's meeting is a special committee of the whole financial plan meeting. Please note immediately following the financial plan meeting, there'll be a special council meeting to consider the final reading of 3 bylaws that we dealt with previously. We'll be starting the committee of the whole financial plan meeting with public input. Anyone wishing to speak about an agenda item may do so. And if you wish to address council, please come up to the microphone, provide your name and your address and your comments, and we ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes for everybody. The second part of the agenda will begin with presentations from the Greater Victoria Public Library, the Horticultural Centre of the Pacific, the Swan Lake Christmas Hill Nature Sanctuary, and the Saanich Heritage Foundation. And then lastly, the committee will spend some time deliberating on the budget. We will then adjourn that meeting and then move into the council meeting to deal with the bylaws. So with that, I'm going to invite members of the public up to the microphone for public input. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Karen Harper, 3430 Bon Air. I am here tonight to reiterate the concerns that I expressed at the last meeting regarding Saanich's proposed tax increases. As I pointed out last meeting, historically, from 2002 to 2015, the increases from Saanich on the average home were 74.06%, while the CPI during the same period of time was 18.6%. This is a huge disconnect. With the current proposal, next year I'll be able to stand up and say that the historical increase is 77+%, and the CPI is still under 20% at 19.8%. The basket of goods argument simply does not hold with this history. You should be able to come in with a budget that's 2% or less of an increase. A majority of costs are salaries, and that is the neighborhood in which they are found. Other municipalities are coming in far less than Saanich. Sydney has on its website that they are proposing 0.81%, less than 1%. Victoria is showing that they are coming in at 2.05%, including utility fees. So Saanich is by far of the region the highest. I also recall during the last election that we were told that there was an additional amount in the tax bill to pay for our aging infrastructure. And we were also told during the election that by the time that period was over, the infrastructure would be fully funded. If that is indeed the case, why are not these funds being used for the infrastructure costs referenced by the Director of Finance in her remarks of February the 2nd? If Saanich is to be affordable, as many of you stated as one of your goals in your platforms, you must start being leaders. How? By directing staff through the CAO to bring in a budget at or less than the CPI. With such a huge historical disconnect, there must be efficiencies to be found. It is simply not credible to suggest otherwise. When I was still working at the Pension Corporation in senior management, we were able to both maintain and significantly improve services. Some of you may recall letters that said you would wait 3 years to get service from the Pension Corporation in the early 2000s. By the time I retired, we were into less than 3-day turnarounds. So we significantly maintained and improved services while creating efficiencies. We created cost savings. And how did we do that? By consulting with line staff, not managers, line staff, on how to be more effective and efficient. These are the people who do the day-to-day work. These are the people who need to be consulted. I would expect Saanich to do the same thing. and also to create a culture that is respectful of the taxpayers' ability to pay. Please start asking the hard and the right questions about the budget and stop tossing the soft pitches. We, the taxpayers, deserve more from you and less in taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward. I'll call for a second time. Any members of the public wish to speak? I'll call for a third and final time. All right, with that, I'm going to close the public input period on this part of the agenda. And at this time, I would like to invite representatives of the Great Victoria Public Library Board to come up to the microphone and give their presentation.
I'll start. Says optimistic neighbor here. Remember last year we had some technical difficulties where we didn't bring the presentation.
Welcome, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, my name is Kevin Murdoch. I think I know everybody here. I am the CEO of the Greater Victoria Public Library. I am the chair of the board of the Greater Victoria Public Library, and with me, I glanced down, is the CEO of GVPL, Maureen Sawa. The two of us are going to be speaking today. Unfortunately, Donna Phillips is not with us tonight. She's the Director of Finance, but she's ill tonight, so we're going to go ahead and do our best to answer questions, and if there's anything we can't answer, then we'll go to her afterwards. We also have a large, I'm not going to say all the names because there's too many of those members of the, or staff from the library here, but just a couple of the directors. We have Daphne Wood, who is the Director of Communications and Development. We have Lynn Jordan, who is the Deputy CEO. We also have Olivia Anderson, who's the District Coordinator for the Saanich branches. And we should probably also recognize Helen Hughes, who is the President of QP Local 410, here with us tonight as well. I should probably also recognize Dee Murdoch, who is the council representative on the GVPL board, who does a fantastic job both on our finance committee and at large, giving us some sage advice at the board level. We do have representatives from all 10 member municipalities at the GVPL board, which is really great in the sense of getting to crunching numbers, because we all recognize the impact that our budgets have. This has been a pretty exciting year for us. We just completed our new strategic plan, so we are kicking off this year working to that plan. We have new mission, vision statements, new values articulated. Really our goal here is to build upon the successes we've had over the last few years, and notably the more than 100 partnerships that we currently use to create outreach programs and so forth to the community. You've received the final budget package, and Maureen will be talking to the details. I just want to let you know on behalf of the board that the board and the staff have worked very hard to develop this budget and try and keep the overall increase down as low as we could. And I have to thank our community partners for helping with that, because we couldn't do it without them. And really our goal with this budget was to maintain and preserve our services without, despite the cost pressures that are in front of us. I think I really have to articulate some of those pressures so you understand where we're coming from on this. One, of course, is just the impact of the regionally negotiated salary and benefits packages for public sector unions. We really do have escalating costs of materials that we do work within, but the low Canadian dollar, high US dollar situation is hitting us quite hard this year. We are also suffering from lack of alternate sources of income. So one is that the federal and provincial government's funding is very flat. So that any increase falls 100% on the municipal partners. So the increase to the municipalities is higher than the actual increase. Also, we get a significant amount of our funding from fines, and that is going away very quickly as we move into electronic sources of materials. I also just want to thank you for your continued support. We celebrated last week our Freedom to Read Week, which we launched our strategic plan and introduced a new outreach vehicle, which will help continue to expand our services. I do want to point out that's a good example of our partnerships. That van was entirely funded both from a grant from the Victoria Foundation and from the fundraising of the Friends of the Library. So with those partners, we really do look forward to continuing our work that we do. With that, I'll introduce Maureen, the real CEO, to walk you through the key budget items, and we'll be happy to respond to any questions you might have at the end of that. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for welcoming us this evening. It's great to be back. I'm just going to make sure I I always have trouble with the... Okay. Yes. As Kevin mentioned, Greater Victoria Public Library is comprised of 10 municipalities. This is just a vision of some wonderful people who serve on our board, both councillor representatives and citizen reps. We're soon going to have 11 branches. What is really important to me, just to speak to you about very briefly today before we get into the budget, is that we had a fantastic 5 years with our strategic plan. We achieved so much, and with the public participation that we endeavored over the summer and this September, we have come up with a fantastic new community-inspired library service plan. Some of you may have seen that already. We have launched it, as I said, Kevin has said last week, and you will be hearing a lot more about that. Hopefully through your councillor representative when he hears all about it at board meetings. GVPL prides itself in being your place to connect, discover, and imagine. And I know I say this every year, but it's true every year. We are one of the busiest library systems ranked in the Canadian Urban Library Council's rankings of urban library systems across Canada. Last year we had 2 million in-person visits and 4 million virtual ones. We've had 280,000 sessions on our public computers and almost 500,000 wireless sessions just in 1 year. 3,000 programs were attended by more than 74,000 people, from babies to seniors. GVPL is part of a thriving Saanich. You may recognize some people on the slides. You see some of our citizen reps.
That's me.
Yeah, that is you. That is you, yes. We had a wonderful experience in the summer, and several guests came to participate in our summer reading club. And I believe the mayor got to make some special buttons, and you may still have the one that says, "I love GVPL." I hope so. But we also are very, very impressed with how active our 4 branches in Saanich continue to be. Nellie McCline, Bruce Hutchison, Saanich Centennial, and of course Emily Carr in Uptown, which continues to be where the people are and just really contributes to our overall numbers. You may also be interested to know that last year's Summer Reading Club, thanks to some of our special guests, participations jumped from 6,013 in 2014 to 7,080 in 2015. That was like a remarkable increase. And it just demonstrates the growing appreciation of what the library can do to maintain literacy skills throughout the year. We also have been very active in the Victoria Refugee sponsorship forums and have done quite a bit with our resources to ensure that we provide what's necessary for newcomers. So as Kevin mentioned, we have had some significant budget drivers this year. One, of course, is the salaries and benefits. Dropping fine revenue, that is a good news story because it does mean that our materials are coming back. We have some amazing software to make sure that people are reminded in a timely way. I have this reminder all the time, and I'm constantly reminded that the book I took home, I haven't even started yet, now it's time to bring it back. But I do bring it back so that someone else can have it. More and more electronic resources mean that instead of having an overdue material, it just vaporizes and you don't have to worry about it. So, that takes care of some of our revenue. But the demand for library services really continues to spike. And as Kevin mentioned, we have been impacted by the failing Canadian dollar. We do buy our material through Canadian distributors. It's not that we're buying from the US, but the reality is popular high demand materials tend to be distributed by multinational corporations that are based in the United States. So the pricing is something that is beyond a Canadian distributor's control. Fortunately, we have a number of budget savers. We always like to talk about GVPL and innovation. We introduced a new ILS, an integrated library system last year. We have an in-house made app and mobile catalog that I hope you'll all have a chance to try sometime. And this has allowed us to save considerable money instead of buying out-of-the-box solutions. We've created things in-house. We are very resourceful. As you know, we are adding an 11th branch to the system that will be in Langford as part of the new recreation complex. We were able to primarily staff that branch by using existing staff vacancies and building on our district model. As someone once said, our collections float, and so do our staff. So we can have maximum efficiency. In terms of collaboration, as Kevin mentioned, we have been able to develop a number of partnerships. We do have really over 100 partnerships working with Greater Victoria Public Library. We use buying consortiums. We are more and more successful in acquiring grants, Victoria Foundation, United Way. We received substantial Times Colonist Raise the Reader grants so we can maintain our Books for Babies program. So we're doing what we can to mitigate our decreased buying power due to the weak Canadian dollar. And we are continuing to focus our efforts on alternative revenue sources. The board is very interested in that. Staff are looking at some additional opportunities that we may be able to acquire some further revenue. You all have received the budget package. As you know, because of some of these driving forces, we did come in a little bit higher with our budget increase. However, it is a smaller increase in 2015, and many of you may have noticed that the provisional budget that we projected in terms of Saanach's municipal contribution, it's actually come in less as your final figures. So our projection for a contribution increase of 2.77% increase, it's actually come down to 2.49% increase. This is maybe a little cute, but this $1.18 increase per capita really amounts to not even a very good cup of coffee. So certainly not a latte, we would never say that. This budget is a maintenance budget, and I just jumped the slides, but I will just tell you that it does allow us to preserve our current level of service, maintain Sunday hours, and continue to be responsive to our community. One of the most interesting things that we've done lately is introduce an outreach vehicle that was launched last week, as Kevin mentioned. Again, funded by external donors. This means that we can be everywhere. So not only are we everywhere virtually, but we are getting everywhere physically. This will allow us to do increased literacy outreach programs and visit areas where it's difficult for people to get to the public library. This is one of my favorite images because I think a picture does speak 1,000 words. Libraries do change lives. We see it every day. The feedback we got in the strategic planning consultation engagement process was, we love what you do, we just want you to do more. One of the things that we found interesting was that many of the things some people suggested we do, we are already doing. So that just tells us that communication is still key. The final slide is just a picture of our board chair and Councillor Murdoch cutting a very delicious cake at the 50th anniversary of the Emily Carr branch. And I think you may have read in the paper that this is a significant anniversary. Saanich was the first municipality to join the Victoria Public Library system. And once Saanich joined, then others fell along, and we now have a library system that delivers a level of service that normally is only available in large urban centers. So thanks to the collective power and inspiration of all municipalities, we have a really strong, robust system. But it was started here in Saanich that kind of got the ball rolling. So that's our kind of quick overview. I know that the mayor has indicated that you would like us to come back maybe in the fall, of the year, instead of just once at budget time, and we would love to do that. So hopefully when we come back in the fall, we can give you more of an update in terms of where our strat plan is going. So that being said, as Kevin mentioned, I am without my finance director tonight, so you have to be patient with some of your questions. If there is a question that I'm unable to answer, what we will do is we will flag it for Donna, our finance director, and give the information to Councillor Murdoch so that he can report back to you as soon as she is better. Okay, so that's all I had to say. Maybe Kevin, do you want to? Okay, so if there are any questions or comments?
Great, Councillor Jim has his hand up. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. First of all, thank you very much for the work that you continue to do. I think increasingly the library becomes an important place where community connects. And beyond that, it remains, for me at least, an extremely important place of social equity. And that somehow we must maintain. First question is just, how long has federal, but in particular provincial contributions essentially flatlined?
I think it's been at least, what, 6 years, Lynn, 7? It was before I got here. Yeah. Provincial. Yeah, yeah.
So fundamentally, they're paying a diminishing share.
They have remained flat, although the good news is they haven't diminished it any further. I mean, I have to say the word that I get sometimes is that they maintained it, they haven't cut it, but you're right, they haven't increased it, yeah.
I'm presuming you have somebody who pursues grants?
Yes,
No?
yes, yes.
Is there, or has there been consideration, maybe it exists, I don't know, a foundation or society that supports the library as well?
We currently have a Friends of the Library organization, and they are quite successful in raising, you know, fairly between $40,000 and $50,000 a year for special projects. Large library systems in Vancouver, Edmonton, Toronto typically have foundations. We do work with the Victoria Foundation. We've been very fortunate because our new Director of Development and Communication has come to us from Vancouver Public, where they've been very successful in fundraising, and Daphne has been here just a couple of months, but she's got a lot of ideas, so it certainly is something that the board wants us to emphasize our efforts on.
Do you have a program of planned giving and a program which makes it easy and encourages people to give bequests?
We do have, I wouldn't say it's as sophisticated as maybe a foundation would be, but we have quite a lot of opportunity, and we really ramped up the development program over the last couple of years, so we can make that information available to you personally, but there is a giving donation program.
It just seems to me that there are a lot of people who identify very strongly with public libraries who might wish to support it.
Yeah, exactly.
In their will and so forth.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Plant, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo my colleagues. Thanks for the work you do and for coming to see us tonight. I just have a couple questions about the budget, if I can, and ask you to just clarify what I think to understand is the case. And what I'm referring to is the specifics are library materials, and the big jump I see is because of the Langford facility opening. Is it correct to understand that the municipality of Langford is paying that $350,000?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you. So that's good to know for our Sandwich taxpayers.
Yes.
Second question is, will then it be fair to assume that that figure will go back down next year and be less of a burden on the budget?
It's a startup budget, like that's their startup figure. We have projected our budget for 5 years. There will be a bit of a kind of lift in terms of our overall collection budget, but nothing to that degree. I mean, that's a one-time thing.
I would want to hear that such a big increase isn't going to be then considered the bottom line starting place for next year. Thank you. Then the other question. Sorry, I thought I had that second one. I'll leave it at that. I apologize.
If you think of any, don't hesitate. You know where we are.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gaines, go ahead.
Thank you, through the mayor. So, yeah, I'll echo everyone's appreciation for the work you do. Thank you. I should know this, and I will now when you answer. With the plan given and those other activities, is there a tax receipt through the library?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a question. I get the benefit of asking Donna and Maureen the questions at the Finance Committee meeting and the board meetings. I just want to offer my thanks to Maureen and the staff at the library for the incredible work that goes into preparing the budget materials and the preparation of the budget generally. As I've expressed to this council before, there are 10 member municipalities that participate at GVPL, and trying to sort through the funding formula and how that's allocated and presenting that material in a way that makes sense to board members like myself who have a love for the library but maybe not a sophisticated understanding of, well, I think my understanding is getting more sophisticated the longer I sit there, but of the library's operations and the mechanics of how it's funded. So just a tremendous amount of work that goes into it, and that speaks to the library services more broadly, that I think there's an awful lot of work that goes into providing a very high quality service that I know our residents enjoy. The last thing I want to say is, this past year the board and staff, Maureen in particular, have spent a considerable effort in renewing the strategic plan and service plan, and it's been, I think, an incredible example of it, working with the community that the library serves to understand what they value, what the library means in our community, and reflecting that in terms of what the library will continue to represent in the direction that it will go. So it was a pleasure to play a small part in that process, and to witness the willingness of the library staff to be so engaged with the community, and our community for coming in and offering such thoughtful responses, suggestions, and recommendations for where the library could go. A really enjoyable process. You can't always say that about strategic plans and service planning, but this was definitely one that, maybe not for Maureen, but certainly from the board perspective, was incredibly beneficial and a real pleasure to be a part of. So thank you very much.
Councillor Bryce, and then Councillor
Thank you,
Flanagan.
Mr. Mayor. I too am a big supporter of the work that you do, and I know that the library board's gone through this line by line, so that's not our job here tonight. I am interested though, as it turns out, to see how on a cost per capita basis it shakes out for Saanich. And I see the footnote is that it's based on the 50% property assessment, 50% population estimate. Is that the only thing that's taken into account to make the significant difference between the Victoria, they're paying $7 per capita more than in Saanich? Is that the straight formula?
It's the formula, the library operating agreement formula, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we won't go any further with that, then we're getting a good deal. The only other question I would ask is the Emily Carr branch. In terms of your estimated visits and activity when you first opened up, how have you matched with projections?
It actually went up higher than we expected the first year, and I'm going to just turn to Olivia, who lives it. And Amanda, who's the supervisor out there. What we have found is that it really, what we expected is what happened. We went where the people are, and the people are at Uptown. A lot of people at Uptown, and a lot of people that would not have maybe thought to go to a library and discovered it there, and it's quite convenient. Olivia, Amanda, do you want to say anything?
I can't say more than that.
Could you
It
come up
was
to the
an
microphone?
adjustment, I must say, for people moving across the street. But I think Amanda will agree that patrons are very, very happy with it, and lots of people coming in through the doors. It's a very well-used branch. If you drop in any time of the day, the living room that overlooks the mall is full of fabulous views, and every seat is taken.
Yeah, and as Uptown continues to grow, we see more and more happening there, so.
Well, I bet the numbers are matching. I must say, when I go in there, it has a different feel than going into the Hutchison Library.
Yes.
It has a tendency at times to feel like people parked out at Starbucks with their apparatus. Yeah, it's just a different feel and concept for sure.
And that's what's so wonderful about the Greater Victoria Public Library system, because we have such a range of branch kind of venues, and you know, I have to say the branches in Saanich are very heavily used. Nellie McClung is, don't have to say it, bursting at the seams. You know, Bruce Hutchison, Saanich Centennial, having branches in shared spaces seems to really work well for Saanich.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you. I remember my question now.
Okay.
I'm just wondering what you got reference to your reserves that you're transferring out each year. I'm just wondering if you're able to tell us what are the account balances in reserves for the GVPL?
Okay, that's a Donna question. I can get that information for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, any more questions for our representatives?
I can probably answer a little bit of that question.
Go
Just for, in general terms, on the reserves that this question's been asked, I think, every year at the table. I don't remember the actual numbers, we'll get those to you. But for the most part, the reserves are in many ways similar to municipal reserves. We have very specialized reserves for particular things. So there's quite a lot of money in the reserves, and they're also allocated to collections, replacements, and refreshments of hardware. So there's a computer fund and so forth to fund those. So we'll get the exact numbers, but it's a very similar model in terms of municipal and having those sort of set aside for very specific tasks, so that there's no one lump sum and for say capital projects in a single year. That's typically what the reserves are being used for. They're not. We don't have a large number of reserves. They're sitting there as a fund for anything we want to use it for in the future. They're typically allocated. Just for clarification.
Okay. All right, again, thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to invite representatives of the Horticultural Center of the Pacific up to the microphone.